गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गणेश शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज हम डिस्कस करने वाले हैं कश्मीर के बारे में, कश्मीर न्यू होराइजन्स एंड द ग्रेट एक्सपेक्टेशंस ऑफ यू नो from of the people. And to discuss all this with me are General Gautam Murthy and General Satish Dua. Hopefully, before we go further, we will have Mr. Javed Beg and Mr. Kuldeep Khoda joining us shortly. First and foremost, General Gautam Murthy sir, you may take on and do the honors and then introduce the subject. Then we'll go further.
Thank you, General Shankar. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Jai Hind. On behalf of Team CASA, I welcome you all to this very important webinar, our 47th so far on New Horizons of J&K and Great Expectations. You see, the momentous decision of the Government of India, which was ratified by the Parliament on 5th August 2019, has been upheld by the Honorable Supreme Court of India unanimously after hearing a clutch of 19 petitions and discussing threadbare each and every constitutional aspect of it. So, with the Parliament upholding the executive order and the Honorable Supreme Court again upholding both the executive order and the Parliament resolution, all doubts that anyone had about J&K being an integral and inalienable part of India have been laid to rest. As the people of India and most people of J&K welcome this judgment, we here at CASA are looking at the broader implications of the status of J&K, what it means to India, to the people of J&K who have seen peace dividends since 5th August 2019, to some sections of Pakistan's polity, and to the world in general. As J&K enters a new phase, much is expected. What happens next? Where do we go from here? What is the significance of this momentous judgment on the future of J&K? To discuss all this and more, we have with us a very eminent panel. Our first speaker is Lieutenant General Satish Dua, PVSM, UISM, SMVSM, who retired as Chief of Integrated Defense Staff. General Dua is a counter-terrorism specialist. He was a corps commander in Kashmir during the tumultuous years of 2015, 2016, when we saw that Burhan Wani's episode, we saw the surgical strikes in response to the terror attack at Uri and controlling the huge unrest in the valley. So he has seen J&K very close. He commanded his battalion, which is J&K Light Infantry, which is basically made up of troops from the valley. And he is absolutely an authority on this. He writes and speaks on current and strategic affairs. He's authored two books. One is about called India's Bravehearts, Untold Story from the Indian Army, which has been translated into many Indian languages. And another called recently called The General Reminiscences, A Life Under Fire in Kashmir. He's a TEDx and a motivational speaker for Youth Forum, corporate leadership talks. And as you all know, the General is a very outdoor man, fond of horse riding, adventure sports, skiing, mountain biking, and the works. Welcome, General Dua, to this webinar, and we look forward to you
Thank you.
hearing your views with your fingers on the pulse in the valley.
Thank you, sir.
Speaker is Mr. Kuldeep Khoda, who is an IPS officer, joined in 1974. He led the J&K police for 5 years, from 2007 to 2012. And he is been conferred with many international honors and awards. Our third speaker is Mr. Javed Beg, who is a political leader, former General Secretary of the People's Democratic Front, secular, and a research scholar doing research in Sufism and Kashmir culture. He's a prolific writer, prominent debater, promotes modern, secular, liberal, and inclusive Kashmir. He has a great following on Twitter, and I do also follow him. Wonderful tweets from Mr. Javed Beg. Moderator is none other than yours truly, General P.R. Shankar, who's former DG Artillery, now Professor of Aerospace Department. And we are all here thanks to his hugely popular Gunner Shot blog, read and seen across 80 countries. For the people who are just joining, over 14,300 subscribers, gets over 2,000 hits per day, and his readership has crossed over 5 million. We thank you, General Shankar, for hosting this CASA webinar on your StreamYard account. And it's over to you for the rest of the proceedings. Over to you, General Shankar.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot for that generous introduction. We're going to get going with the webinar. Yeah, I see Mr. Javed Beg has joined us. Mr. Kuldeep Poda has not yet joined. As
Namaskar.
and when he, Namaskar and
Welcome,
welcome
welcome.
to the seminar, Mr. Javed Beg. Right. Now, what we'll do if Mr. Kuldeep Poda comes, we'll you know, let him have his say. But in the meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll give each speaker about 5 minutes so that he can go through his point of view on this thing, what has happened in JNK, or rather, what has happened in the Supreme Court decision, and what will be the impact on JNK, and what do they see, right? After all, we are talking of something called great expectations. What are the expectations from JNK? And then
Okay, thank
once they have this 5 odd minutes at the end of the five, nearly at the end of 5 minutes, I'll nudge you to wind up. Please keep to time. And then we will, I will pose a few questions based on your expertise so that you can answer it best. Three different views, three different expertises, and we'll get a holistic picture as to where JNK is going. Then, of course, we'll take questions from our audience. I'm sure they have a lot of questions on hand, and then we'll see how to take it forward from there. Okay, now getting on to the subject proper, we all know the other day that the Supreme Court gave a really, clear ruling that whatever the government did in terms of abrogating Article 370 and whatever actions it did in terms of making a union territory out of Ladakh and a union territory of Jammu and Kashmir are all correct, right? There's nothing much left in that whole story. But they've given some kind of a rider, a outrider, and which I think is good and in fitness of all things, that they've said you must have elections by September 20. A lot of leeway to the government, nearly 8 months, 9 months. And also, they've said, you please restore statehood, and the status of JNK has to be, restored back virtually, or whatever. So I think with these three things in view, a lot of things will change. It's not as if JNK has not changed. JNK has changed in the past from August 19 to now. It's 4 years. A lot of things in JNK have changed, right? The violence levels have gone down. Tourism has reappeared. We've also held a G20 meet out there. The things across the border in Pakistan have changed. Certain things across the other border, across Ladakh, have also changed, right? A lot of things have happened in the past 4 years. So the fundamentals of JNK have changed in the past 4 years, ever since the abrogation of the Article 370. So actually speaking, instead of a Naya Pakistan, we have a Naya Kashmir. And I wouldn't be wrong to say it's a Naya Kashmir which we have to look ahead with great expectations. Right. First and foremost, in any of this, I think we have to listen to the voice from the ground. What do the people of JNK feel about all this, and how do they look at it from their perspective, and what do they see in the future? So, Mr. Javed Beg, over to you. Please give your view on this whole thing before we come tackle a few subjects based on what you talk. Over to you, Mr. Javed Beg.
Thank you so much. I'm highly thankful to this beautiful intellectual platform for inviting me in this August debate discussion. That too, uh, regarding my Jammu and Kashmir. Uh, well, the biggest and the best change which has happened post abrogation is the change in mindset. Uh, you know, this has basically opened up vistas, new channels, new opportunities for Kashmiris to showcase or portray their real image, what Kashmir stands for. Earlier, before abrogation, or I can say in last 35 years, whole Jammu and Kashmir, especially Kashmir, was held hostage by the forces who wanted to disturb, destroy that very fiber and fundamental what Kashmir has always stood for. What we call Kashmiriyat. Kashmiriyat is another word for the beautiful and holy idea of India. When you talk about idea of India, that is what Kashmiriyat stands for. That is why we call Kashmir a mini Bharat, a mini India. Those forces did everything in last 30, 35 years to destroy that very image of Kashmiris. But now, post abrogation, Kashmiris like me, we are able to speak our heart out. We were not either allowed to, or situations did not permit us to speak what Kashmir stands for. So this is the biggest and best change post abrogation, that our mindset has changed, including the people who always wanted peace, who were trying their bit to bring peace, or to do their bit in bringing peace. We were not able to do, and we were not allowed to, or we were not permitted to do so. Second, the way security situation has improved, I can see this change since I keep meeting people. Right now I'm speaking to all of the guests and our viewers from my village. It is 45 to 50 kilometers from Srinagar. You can see me without any kind of fear speaking what I was supposed to speak even 30 years before. So this is the confidence because of the security situation. I was invited last week. I was invited on a wedding, and for the first time in my life, I have seen a barat coming late night. It was 12:30. That is basically in the middle of the night. I haven't seen those things happening before abrogation. So this is the level of confidence. Second, there is no stone pelting at all. There were elements who will push our younger generation towards those kind of incidents. But post abrogation, the stone pelting incidents are zero. Situation in downtown Srinagar. In my entire life, I have seen violence in downtown Srinagar. I have been student of Amar Singh College. I have spent 5 years in Srinagar, and I haven't seen a day in my early youthful days without violence, without people getting killed, without incidents of firing, without incidents of mine blasts or grenades. But post abrogation, not a single incident of violence in downtown Srinagar. Downtown Srinagar portrays what other districts of Kashmir cannot portray. Downtown Srinagar is being seen not only by our country but other countries as well. So the situation improvement in downtown is basically a very good sign for the overall security situation of Kashmir. Security situation in South Kashmir. In South Kashmir, people were living a life full of fear, insecurities. But now, in South Kashmir, in last 3-4 years, we have seen those young budding youth who were pushed towards stone pelting, they are holding uh, sports tournaments, that too late in the evening. We have seen a cricket match being played late in the evening. That hasn't happened in last 30 years. Kashmiris were not taking part in any kind of developmental activities which were happening all across country. But now, Kashmiris, especially Kashmiri Muslims, they have started representing Kashmir, not only Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, but our country at international platforms. A guy from my neighborhood uh, is representing my country at Olympics. A daughter from Kashmir, she is from South Kashmir, has very recently won. Uh, I think she stood second in a program called Master Chef, which is not, which was not being even understood by common Kashmiris. So these are the developments post abrogation. That's where people like me and many youth, they take confidence out of this security, changed security situation. And more than encounters or militants getting killed, we are seeing many youth coming forward and surrendering. People are being many guys who are either pushed into militancy, they are being caught because intelligence has improved. This is again very important thing. So, in together, the overall situation of Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Kashmir, has improved, which is, I think, a good sign for the good times to come. We cannot change past. Whatever has happened in the past has happened. We cannot change. But yes, we can uh, think of a better tomorrow, and that's where we are heading. This is a good omen for a better, brighter, peaceful, and prosperous tomorrow coming for us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your, ideas. Well, you have very clearly said a change of mindset is in the air. New opportunities are opening up. The idea of Kashmiriyat is staging a return. Today, Kashmiris can speak without fear. The security situation has improved. And more importantly, the things of normal day to day life, like late night barats, peace in downtown Srinagar, sports taking place, people playing games, and people taking part in things like Master Chef and all, are indicative of normalcy coming back into the area. And when you look from this perspective, the idea of a better tomorrow is always a fascinating thing which we have to discuss a little more. But I'll get back to you later on this. At this juncture, I'd also welcome Mr. Kuldeep Koda onto the platform. Welcome, Mr. Koda. I would, you just absorb this, and I'll get you in a little later after General Satish Dua speaks. General Satish Dua, you've been the co-commander there, and you spent almost, entire career having numerous assignments out there, and then, of course, you're even writing books on them, and you're also from the Jackalai, Jack Light Infantry. You've been the Colonel Commandant. So you know a lot of Kashmir and how things have changed. How do you think the changes happened over the past, 4 years? And what do you see going ahead, your overviews? Please go ahead, General Satish Dua.
Thank you very much, sir. And Jai Hind to all the viewers and Jai Hind to my co-panelists. I will not repeat what Javed Bhai has already said, because he's brought out the ground position. He's brought out what people feel in Kashmir. He's given instances of the weddings and how he's sitting in a remote village in a village in Kashmir. He's speaking to us fearlessly at night about things like this. I agree that this was not possible earlier. I just add on one or two more things that come to my mind, only in vain. I will not repeat. Stone pelting is not there. Otherwise, when I was a corps commander or at junior ranks, stone pelting was the order of the day. It would result in the tear gas shells. It would result in some firing. It would result in casualties and things like that. Uh, Today, not only is this ended, today schools are not being closed. It is, when we say they're moving towards normalcy, I mean, in a normal city or town, going to school is not a big deal. Every day children, in fact, want to go to school, and sometimes they don't want to. Children don't want to go to school for a different reason, but because it is there held daily. In Kashmir, it's a big thing that schools are running, and then the Hurriyat is not issuing a calendar, and because of the calendar, there used to be buns and penalty, etc. Apart from that, things that have not happened for last 3.5 decades are happening now. There is a multiplex. People can watch movies. There was no cinema hall in Kashmir when I was a corps commander. I mean, we know it, for 3 decades there was no cinema hall, no movies. There were no food outlets like KFC, Haldiram. Such things are happening. This is moving towards normalcy. Tourists are coming in throngs. Tourists are thronging, and this is given. It is giving rosy roti to all the shikara wala, sumo wala, pony wala. All the yatra goes on normally. I mean, so I can go on and on. I will not talk more about this, but this is one aspect. This one aspect is how things are moving towards normalcy. And the second, I'll touch upon three aspects. The second aspect, which has happened now, is that by virtue of abrogation or dilution of Article 370, and after that, a couple of subsequent developments, now there were some communities or sets of people who had been sidelined. They are getting their due. Firstly, all people also are getting their due, because now people of Kashmir are subject to RTI, right to education, and things like that, which they were sort of bereft of earlier. Communities like Pahadis and Gujars have now some reservation in the political structure. Kashmiri Pandits who have suffered migration, that's a huge question. Going ahead, we have to think as to how those 3 lakhs, approximately 3 lakh of them, have to be rehabilitated, but then they have got some reservations now in the political process. There were migrants from West Pakistan who had come in this side. They were not having rights. There were Valmikis, the scheduled caste, who were not having any rights. They have got some reservations. So this is the second aspect. Things which were not happening earlier give solace and some closure to these marginalized communities. And the third thing I want to talk about is the political process. Supreme Court has said that elections must be held. You both have you've spoken about it, Jalal Shankar. I won't repeat that. Well, statehood and elections is going to happen in next 9 months, and government also had said as soon as possible they were going to do it. But let's not forget that during the last 4 years, this political process has actually started. For the first time, we have seen that the panchayat elections were held. There is a 3-tier panchayat which is in place. That is real grassroots empowerment, and it's a very welcome step. Fruits of which are seen now. More will be seen later. And before I give a peep into the future as to my view, but one more aspect that I would like to bring on is that because the government is ruling from the center, that is through a lieutenant governor, and as a union territory now, many schemes, welfare schemes, infrastructure schemes, foreign investment schemes, so many of them. I don't want to go into details because that will take a long time. Educational scheme, 50 more educational institutions are being opened. 25 more educational institutions are being opened. 50,000 students are going to benefit from that. We are going to get an AIMS and IIM, etc. So many, then water, electricity, roads, tunnels. I mean, so much has happened in the last 4 years, which did not happen in the last 7 decades. But I would like to throw a cautionary thing here before I end. I have a a slight point of difference from Javed Bhai. What he says is right. People are moving towards normalcy. People are happy that this is happening. But can we say all is well in the psyche of Kashmiris? I don't think so. I also have troops from J&K. I deal with them. I deal with retired people. I've been to Kashmir 4 or 5 times after 2019. And my sense is that there are still huge pockets of discontentment. There is that alienation is not fully gone. And to when I ask somebody, ये ठीक है? नहीं साहब ये अच्छा नहीं हुआ. Now when you point out all the good things that have happened, he says वो ठीक है. पर ये फिर भी ये गलत हुआ. They talk more about it becoming a union territory. It is a downgradation. So that will be taken care of. But my point is that as far as alienation is concerned, there will be alienation for some time. What has taken 3 decades or more to spoil cannot be undone overnight. It will take time. The state, when I say state, that means the nation state, that means the center and the state government which comes into power, will have to tackle it in this manner that the next generations think positively, and we have to replace this idea of azadi, if it is there in any mind, with the idea of India. But we have to be patient about it. Thank you, Janshan.
Oh, thanks a lot, Janadua. I think you made some very, very valid point. You reinforced what Javed Bhai said about normalcy on schools, movies, tourists, and all that, which is it's the good part of the story. And the important point you made is Kashmir is becoming more of an inclusive society. The sideline communities are getting their due, where there's a balance in who gets what from the big cake which is there at the top, right? And they're getting their cake politically and societally. It's not only a matter of cash infusion and infrastructure and bridges, but I think the political and the mental space is more important. Uh, you also pointed out that the government schemes are on track, and this we've been talking on and off that they have revived a lot of faith in how government functions, unlike before. The basic issues of Sadak Bijli Pani, yes. I think the most important point you made is that the psyche is not at healed. Right? I agree with you because a psyche which has gone astray over 2 to 3 decades. In fact, I still go back to the time in 1985. I was in Sharifabad, my unit was there when Boris Becker won the first Wimbledon. I watched it in Sharifabad. And from the time then to now, a lot of things have changed. For them to go back to that time where someone like me, a young officer, can still watch, you know, a Wimbledon sitting out in the open will take time. So the psych is going to take time. There will be pockets of discontent which you handle. I think that's a challenge, right? And a major point you have brought out is the necessity to tackle the next generation. The mindset of the next generation has to be tackled because your seed lies in the future. How you handle this seed is more important for for to take Kashmir back to what it was, say, 30, 40 years back. And despite all this, we will still see an element of discontent, which is normal in any democracy, which we can handle, given the bandwidth India has in its democratic traditions and capability to take everyone along. Okay. Now, with this, I'd request Mr. Kuldeep Koda, because he's been the DGP of the state and he's seen things which we have not seen, and he has a better way of looking at things, black and white kind of a thing to what it is now and what is there. I'll ask him for his views and his opinion. Over to you, Mr. Kuldeep Koda. Please unmute your mic.
Thank you, Janil Saab, for getting me on this program. I listened to Javed ji very interestingly, and he has given some very positive aspects of the present situation and the way Jammu and Kashmir is moving forward, especially the Kashmir region of it. And Janil Dua has very rightly pointed out some of the gray areas which are still to be addressed and which need to be addressed. Let me start with saying that Kashmir has been a victim of uncertainty. Uncertainty right from 1948, when ceasefire was agreed to, leading to division of state. And uncertainty has been one of the major factors which has driven Kashmiris to a situation where confusion was prevailing all around. Before the onset of terrorism in 1989 or 1990, the situation in Kashmir has never been stable. Terrorism was not there, but the situation was never stable. I was born in Srinagar. I am from downtown Srinagar. I had my schooling at college there, and I served all along my 38 years of service in Indian Police Service in Jammu and Kashmir only, nowhere else. The law and order problem was always prevailing before the onset of terrorism. And deaths and firings have been there prior to that also in law and order situations, mainly driven by elements inimical to the nation. The Peloponnesian Front was in dominance for a long period of time. And later on, after the Accord of 1975, the situation improved for some time, but later on again it deteriorated. Everybody knows how it grew later on into armed boys going across the border and coming back armed after training, and then the terrorism started. But now what has happened is that in 2019 June, with the abrogation of Article 370 and Supreme Court giving its final nod on December 11 this year, the uncertainty element is over. Now Kashmiris can look forward to a stable situation. Now it is for us, when I say us, it's for the government and the people of Kashmir to see the reality, to grow with the rest of the nation. Those elements who are still not reconciled to it, they should see the reality. Rather than raising voices, which we have seen in the past few days after the Supreme Court ruling, and mainly led by some mainstream political parties, that they will continue their fight, that they will not reconcile to this ruling, and they will find ways and means to restore back the old situation. I don't see how it is possible, but it is mainly to keep people engaged into uncertainty. That is what has helped them in the past in keeping their political relevance alive, and that is what they are looking for. Now it is for the people of Kashmir to rise to the occasion and call the bluff of those who are still trying to show their dreams to the Kashmiris. And I'm sure that the Kashmiris in most certainty have realized that we should move and become part of the progress which the country is achieving at the present, and be a part of progressive India. And everybody needs to work for the national and the regional interests of the people. But the problems which are still there need to be addressed. General Dua has very rightly pointed out some of the gray areas, which one of those points I underline very emphatically, that the mind of the people, of course, has been addressed through this Supreme Court ruling final, but the hearts of many are yet to get addressed. We have to not only win the hearts and minds of the people, but at the same time, we have to ensure that all measures are taken in that direction, so that people of Kashmir develop a vested interest in the progress of the country. they should gain from the progress which the country is achieving at the moment, its growth, all around growth, and is becoming a world major power, both economically and as well as militarily. And it is for now the powers that be, whether at present or in future, that they have to ensure that all the hindrances in the real integration of Kashmir with the rest of the India are in place. Now, radicalization is still not gone fully. Some people are still, as General Dua pointed out, he is very correct in that. Some people are not able to speak because they fear that they may be they may be put to some sort of they may come to the notice for any sort of activity not in the interest of the nation. But when you talk to them in private, they are not still reconciled to the present situation. The madrasas which are functioning are still trying to educate the young boys, the impressionable minds, about the priority of religion over the country. Whereas everybody should follow his religion very freely, but any sort of teaching in madrasas or anywhere else should not be at the cost of the integrity of the nation. So that's one of the areas where we need to address. For that purpose, a mechanism needs to be in place, which will ensure that the education in madrasas and in some place of higher learning also, which have come to the adverse notice in the past, like the university or some of the professional institutions. You have seen the recent incidents in the NIT, and that reveals the mindset of some of the people. Those things need to be addressed according to the law of land, and not to be looked over and passed off as one of those things which can be ignored. The judicial system also needs now reformation, which is which the government of India is undertaking very seriously now. The new Indian Penal Code is coming up, and including the Evidence Act and the Criminal Procedure Code, that should help, which especially has stringent measures against those who work against the interests of the country, including the trial of those who are in Pakistan or outside who are not available at the present, whose trial can continue in absentia. Then the development of infrastructure, job creation, boost industries which generate, which are the source of livelihood of Kashmiris, like the tourism, the horticulture, power generation, the handicrafts, weapon industry. IT has a lot of future in information technology. So these all need to be addressed so that the people get on the path of work, rather than, idle man's brain is devil's workshop. We have to ensure that the youth of the country get addressed. Army has very strong programs of Sadbhavana, and the civic action programs of the paramilitary and the police are also those which need to be further strengthened. Combined with that, we should be aware of the fact that Pakistan is not going to give up on its Kashmir policy. It's because of Pakistan's problems right now, economic problems as well as other problems, political problems, that they have not been able to increase their tempo in Kashmir. But if at all Pakistan stabilizes, they will try to increase their interest and stakes in Kashmir. For that, we have to ensure that that Pakistan has to pay heavily for any misadventure in Kashmir or in the state or in the country. Combined with that, the sort of the actions which are happening in Pakistan, resulting in the elimination of terrorists who are taken refuge there under Pakistan ISI and establishment, they are getting targeted. That's a good development as far as our national interests are concerned, and we need to focus on the the aspiration of the people within Pakistan and POK also. So let's pay Pakistan back more than what they have been trying to do to us. And then at the same time, we need to continue to build on our the security infrastructure, whether it is the
We'll
border
come to the
management,
security.
all those
Mr.
things
Koda
have to
will
be
come to the
perfect.
security issue. We'll come to the security issue, and we'll talk of the external factor also because I thought I'll take it in the second round. If you have anything more to say, otherwise we'll get into the second round if you don't mind. Right?
All right,
Yeah. Uh, yeah, we have because I thought you have generated a lot of food for thought, which we will have to
absolutely.
debate a little more. Yeah. Right. So I think you brought out some tremendous points. You covered a large landscape. You've spoken of the removal of uncertainty of the status of Jammu and Kashmir and the people of Jammu and Kashmir, which the Supreme Court ruling has done. Uh, right. You have also spoken of yeah yeah. You've spoken of the need for the people of Kashmir to rise and defeat the danger of this uncertainty which is going to prevail. You also spoken of the need to win the hearts, and the minds might have been, logically taken to its logical conclusion, but the hearts need to be built, won over. There's a lot to do, and for that, it needs a lot of progress. You need a lot of reconciliation, right? You need to inculcate the idea of, nation over religion because you have to reverse the whole story. You've spoken of the madrasas because I think at some point of time you have to get some control into these madrasas as to what they teach. Maybe reform of the madrasas is what you have on mind. And then you spoke of a very, very important thing, the idle mind of the devil's workshop, right? And you have to keep people engaged. You have to find employment for people so that people are gainfully working from morning to evening. You've spoken of judicial reforms because unless people have the trust in the rule of the law will not exist, right? And of course, the trials of people absent in absentia who are in Pakistan, and of course, how to deal with Pakistan. I think we've all three of you have covered, three different aspects of this whole story. When you put it together, we get a very clear thing that look, Kashmir is on the cusp of change, and the change, if the abrogation of the Article 370 on August 19 was probably the start of the change, this heralds the tomorrow. These 4 years have been the transitory period. From here on, there's no doubt left what is Kashmir and where it is to go. Of course, there are certain doubts in Pakistan, but then Pakistan is as it may be, can struggle along with whatever it is. I think India is strong enough to handle it completely. Okay. Now, let me interject a few issues which we have not yet touched, and we will touch upon it, and I'll ask each one of you to respond to it. The first issue which we need to know is that Kashmir is going to have a huge change going forward, and change breeds its own problems. Any system under change has its own uncertainties. While we might think there are certainty, it leads to certainties, change brings uncertainty. The second thing is what General Hasnain he wrote very recently, and what General Dua once we spoke about it a year back. Absence of violence is not peace, right? Because in fact, it's not absence of full violence. There are sporadic instances of violence, not public violence, but definitely insurgent and militant activity and terrorist activity is still there. And that's how in the past, 2 months, 3 months, we've lost 6 officers out there, 5 to 6 officers, and brave officers, including a commanding officer, DSP, and 2 young officers. And one of the young officers, his wife is, doing her PhD in IIT. The other day, I had to go and attend the ceremony, martyrdom ceremony, and my heart really broke. Right, but that problem has not gone away. And then, of course, the issue is that the Supreme Court ruling opens up another Pandora's box, if I may say, of the electoral process. Electoral processes in any country are difficult. In our country, it's even more difficult. In J&K, it might, it has many more connotations. And it's something new which is going to happen after a long time, the way it is happening. So that is going to, bring about certain things. Then, of course, there is the issue of the residual insurgency, militancy, terrorism, whatever you call it, left there, which is not running away. And the last factor in this is Pakistan. Pakistan might be down, but it is not out. It is still there. 220 million Pakistanis who really don't like India, right? Because their reason of existence is not anti-India, are still there, and they just need a chance, mocha, to reignite the whole thing. And that fertile ground has still not vanished away. It's going to take a long time. So these are the issues which I thought I'll flag. And now I'll ask each one of you a particular issue which I would like you to focus on. First, we'll go with Javed Beg, who is from, oh, he's gone off. Okay, he's back. We'll just wait for him. Okay, so Javed is back. So the question I have for you, Javed, is this. Kashmir is on the cusp of a political change. Elections are going to be held. A new equations are to be set. What do you see happening? What do you think should happen? And how do you see equations between India and Kashmir developing from hereafter? Right? When I say equations between India and Kashmir, it is not as if they are two different entities, but as part of the same entity. Right? Will Kashmir become like Tamil Nadu, right? As integral part of India, and if so, if I mean, it should become, and there would be problems to it. Your views on this? What do you see in the future? I'm looking at it politically and societally from the future. Over to you, Javed.
Uh, General Saab, a very important question. Again, I will try and give a very positive answer. There is a good scope of political change. Since societal change has already occurred, we have already gone through a societal change where my generation and the generation yet to come will have a different mindset uh, than the mindset of my father's generation. Well, I was born when this whole, I call it facade, started in late 80s, early 90s, and I was brought up in a situation of despair, hopelessness, negativity, pessimism, insecurity. But I have grown up, I have started realizing, and I know the value of peace, value of development, value of what basic infrastructural developments we are lacking in. I would like to give an example of smart city project. The way Srinagar city is transforming. Trust me, somebody from a far-flung area of Badgam district is taking pride in getting myself photographed. I getting a selfie out there in Srinagar, posting it on social media, sending it to my friends all across world and saying, this is how we are changing. This is how my beautiful Kashmir is coming back to normalcy. This is how peace looks like. This is what peace is. And political, scenario will definitely change. I fought an election, I couldn't win because that was a fight. Let me take an example of my cricket team. That was a fight between Indian cricket team and a cricket team from Nepal or Yemen. Earlier the political process would be like this. I am somebody who was born in '87, so you can see how negative impact I have on my psyche. I have in my mindset about the process of elections and what I and people of my generation would be thinking about the institution of democracy. Belonging to a country of elections, every 3 months we have an election in my country, in any part of my country, any kind of election, be it parliamentary election, assembly election, or ULB election. But there will be an election happening anywhere in my country. But people of my generation, we had very less or no hopes in election. In 2019, that change in overall scenario has brought a drastic change in my mindset. I fought an election in 220. I couldn't win it, but I accepted that loss with humility. This is how politics in JNK has changed and will change. Somebody from my generation, I never ever believed in any kind of political process. I have always voted. That's a different story to which party I was giving my vote. But in the heart of hearts, in the back of my mind, I always had a doubt in the overall process of that. We call it a holy institution. Democracy is the holiest of all, and election is another holy institution. But people like me, nobody from Kashmir believed in these institutions. Post abrogation, somebody like Javed Beg, who fought an election, couldn't win, is again trying, is again willing and interested in participating in the process of election. Is the change we always needed? Is something which was lacking in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Kashmir. Second, social aspect. Holding up G20 in Jammu and Kashmir is something which we haven't even seen in our dream. As Kuldeep Khoda Sahab said, and the Satish Dua Sahab said, cinemas, and other entertainment institutions were not even being talked in my society. But now we have INOX holding up G20 and subsequent successful years of tourism is something Javed Beg and youth of my generation will take pride in, will give us a lot of confidence, and will definitely bring a very healthy political process in near future, be it an election or any kind of democratic processes that will be seen with with credibility, and people will start believing in the institutions. That's where I think this change mindset will take all of us.
Right. Thanks a lot. I think you made a few very important points. If I may reiterate them, there's a lot of lost time to catch up in Kashmir, and people are trying to catch up on it, which is very great. They are learning what is peace. The two major points which I see from what you have spoken is the reason to be optimistic. The optimism of future is quite infectious, the way you have spoken, and the belief in the democratic process to fuel this optimism is also palpable. And it is very nice to see that people are expecting a change in the positive direction in Kashmir as a whole. Right. Be that as it may, we've also spoken of a subterranean feeling which is lurking underneath, right, which might never get resolved, but will always be ready to create trouble. So, in this kind of a scenario, and I mean, let's face facts, for the past about 2 decades, Kashmir has been more of a security state, and you need to reverse that. And in this context, what would be the role of the security forces as this transition happens, and how should this transition happen? Is something which we need to think of. And I'd like Mr. Kuldeep Khoda to give his views on it, because you handle the whole security situation in the state. All yours, Mr. Khoda.
General Saab, this is very important as we move forward. How do you go about it in ensuring that the peace and prosperity takes the frontal role and moves on in the interest of the development of the state as well as in the interest of the country on the whole. The elections have to happen and should happen. The Supreme Court has already given a deadline of 30th September next year, and I'm sure that elections are going to happen much before that, so that the government is in place by that time. The elections, as now everybody understands, are always going to be free and fair. Unlike what was the feeling in 1987, and some people attributed the onset of terrorism to the elections of 1987, which I disagree with. It might have precipitated the situation a bit faster than it would have otherwise precipitated, but one cannot say 1987 was the reason responsible for terrorism. And as we all understand now, we all are from the who have worked on ground zero, and it was part of the Pakistan's overall plan, and which they executed in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So as the elections come, and the elections are also in the interest of the people of Kashmir. That's very important, because an elected government is much better representative of people's expectations and aspirations than the government which is there at the present. The legislatures are there to listen to the problems of people, and this is the easiest way for people to reach and vent their grievances or place their demands, and this is the best way of getting feedback from ground for the government also. Now, having said that, we have to see how the system of governance moves effectively, so that the prime objective remains to sustain peace and prosperity, and the government also takes measures in right earnest at a very fast pace for the speedy development and creation of infrastructure, jobs, and other things which are required in the overall interest of people. Now, one aspect which I would like to underline here is the aspect of the internal security, which I feel somehow not based on, I have well reasons for that should continue with the center. It is not to put any sort of inability on the elected people to manage the internal security, but given the fact that the hearts of many people are yet to change and to reconcile to the realities on ground, it is very necessary that the internal security management has to be with the center till the time the situation is completely conducive for that. The politicians have to work on the basis of the aspirations and the feedback from the people. I'm saying from my practical experience that many difficulties are faced in a political system, elsewhere also, in other parts of the country also. But in other parts of the country, we don't face terrorism. We face other sorts of problems where politicians try to accommodate all the elements who are inimical to the peace and law and order of the place where they are voted for. And the vote bank politics is, everybody knows how it works in the country. But in Kashmir, if we go for the vote bank politics, it may not be in the interest of having highest standards of maintenance of internal security. So the internal security aspect, despite having the state being created, may have to continue with the center. I'm sure that Government of India has means and means to know that it is one of the things on which the focus should be there. But on other things, I think we should look forward to growth and prosperity through an elected government with all powers on all subjects which are required there, and of course the measures which are underlined earlier, like the education system, the way it has to be recalibrated, the role of the teachers, the growth of infrastructure and industry, all those things have to move on a fast pace.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think again you made some very valid points. Uh, you know, the role of the security forces are going to be critical in this whole story because it's like protecting a weak lamp, right? The lamp is burning, but you need to protect it so that it doesn't go off back. And you have to have elections, and we know how complicated elections can be, and security forces have a huge role to ensure that these are free and fair, right? And so that the aspiration of the people are met. If that doesn't happen, we might go back to square one. And the fact that the internal security system should be with the center is a new idea which you've thrown up. This is something I'm sure the center and the state, as it when it is constituted, will have to navigate in a joint manner, in a concurrent manner, if I might say, constitutionally, right? Uh, yeah, the major thing which you highlighted is vote bank politics and how it should not make its appearance in a state which is just about newly being formed and where probably after a long time free and fair elections are likely to be held or will be held, right? I think we've made a large thing which about the internal issues or the political issues. We also know that a large part of this problem was instigated by Pakistan. There's an external dimension to the internal peace in Pakistan, internal peace in Kashmir. As and when the state comes up, in fact, why as and when the state comes, as we speak, also there's an external fraction factor playing in. So and there have been also a lot of calls of withdrawing the army from the security grid and revoking ASPA and all that. So I think, taking into consideration all this, how do you think the army should handle the external situation as well as be there internally? General Dua, your views after you being the GOC of 54, who knows things better than you? Over to you.
Um, it's well said that now we are entering a phase which can get very turbulent. We are in a peaceful phase, but the moment we move towards elections, why next 9 months to a year are going to be more critical, as Mr. Kuldeep Koda also brought out. In fact, he went as far as to say that it should continue with the center for some time at least. The point being made here is that elections will bring, or the run up to elections actually will bring forward its own dynamics on as far as internally the area of Kashmir is concerned, whole of J&K, but Kashmir in particular. On the other hand, we see that the situation in the Pakistan is at a very they are in a very turbulent state. Politically, they are very weak at the moment. There is a lot of uncertainty. Diplomatically, they stand very marginalized, if not isolated, in the international community. Even US and the Islamic countries are sort of marginalizing their aid and support to them. Militarily, the military is in a strong position within the country. But we have seen in the past that whenever there is internal turmoil, I forgot, economically they are in the lowest position ever. So whenever the country is in, that is Pakistan, has had internal problems, quite often they have resorted to diverting the attention of their public by creating unrest at the borders. And they're overtly not accepting the Supreme Court verdict on Article 370 might lead them to some kind of a misadventure towards Kashmir. And that misadventure, right now, they don't have that kind of conventional strength. I am not suggesting that they could get into a full-blown war, but they could up their activities in terms of proxy war. So having sort of crystal gazed into what internally and externally external factors would lead the security situation to, my take is that The army must stay poised as it is at the moment. We must strengthen, make the counter infiltration grid more robust, never let our guard down. And in this situation in the hinterland also, we must remain in concert with other security forces, mainly the JK police, the Jammu and Kashmir police, and the CRPF. Yes, I would say when situation improves a little, and last point, at the moment we should not start thinking of tinkering with Armed Forces Special Powers Act. We have seen what it has done to Imphal, what it has done to Manipur. That failed model of uh, selective application of Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and we see after years now Imphal is in turmoil, in deep trouble. JNK is poised on a very delicate situation, and we must ensure that we don't take any hasty steps. So, for the moment, I would feel that we should hold fast. I also endorse Mr. Kuldeep Khuda's bid to say that everything should remain under center, because we have seen at the moment uh, political parties come to fore. There are domestic compulsions, there are political compulsions, which are not applicable now. And we, Mr. Khora has worked as DGP, I've been Corps Commander. We have seen how the governments of the day are have to give in to some compulsions which are detrimental to national interest. I'm sure everyone understands what I'm talking about. I won't elaborate on that any further. So, all in all, we can't let our guard down. The security situation is good today, in the sense that we have a handle on it. And what can perhaps happen, my last sentence on this is, what can perhaps happen is that in the built up areas, we can give more quarter to CRPF and JNK police, but the outlying areas, South Kashmir, as we are seeing that the layer of Pir Panjal is becoming, I mean, whether it's Rajouri, Punch on the other side, to the south, and in the north, the area of Kukarnag and Antnag. So we are seeing that this area also needs to be addressed, lest it starts getting revived again as far as terrorism hotbed is concerned. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think you made a couple of very important points. Uh, if I may just say, what you said is turbulence from Pakistan will continue in some form, diplomatically, militarily, politically, it will continue, not economically. And misadventure is feasible, but the possibility is very low at this point of time. But who knows what happens in future? One issue which we have not contented, we have not spoken, I'll inject it and leave it at that, is to stir trouble in J&K is not only might not only be the handiwork of Pakistan alone, but Pakistan and China together. Because China has also been giving out bland statements, it has a role to play in this whole story. Okay, they can act in a concert. The major point which you made is don't remove ASFA in a hurry. We've been analyzing Manipur, we've been analyzing, Imphal, I've been a lot of things. We've landed up in a real mess out there. If we remove ASFA in a hurry from J&K, we might end up somewhere there, back. And that will be worse. So the danger which I think we face is, in our hurry to normalize situations, we shouldn't destabilize the situation altogether. You have to hurry but slowly, right? And what Jildua and what Mr. Koda have said, that the security situation is not so good that you can just, one day pack up and go off and let the politicians take over. That I think we have some time to go for that. Right. So I think we've had a fantastic set of views on all this as to where Kashmir has to go. I'll take a few questions, and then we'll just take about 2-3 questions, and then we'll call it a day. The first question is an interesting one. All good things have been happening in J&K since 19. Due to 24 general elections, all opposition parties and enemies will try to nullify this credit. What measures are being taken to avoid the situations? I would say what measures should be taken to avoid this situation is something which we have to talk of which Mr. Koda you did mention. So I would request you to throw some light on this.
Uh, can you just repeat it? I just missed it.
Yeah, no problems. He says all good things have been happening in JNK since 2019, but due to the general elections in 24, all opposition parties and enemies will try to nullify whatever is happening. Basically, issues like vote bank
Yeah,
politics.
absolutely,
Yeah.
very valid question. And
Yeah. What
in
measures are
fact, I
being
would,
taken? I would say what measures should be taken to avoid
uh,
this situation going back. This is the yeah.
before I answer this question, let me, put the thing in right perspective. I don't mean to say that security situation is not good. Security situation has improved vastly.
Yeah.
It
There's no
has,
doubt.
and it is continuing to improve. And there is huge difference which the last 4 or 5 years have made in the security situation in positive direction. But they, but we need not tinker with the deployment, especially because we are heading for a transition phase from the central rule to the elections and formation of new government and revival of political parties, their activities, and the heat it generates in the process with diverse political interests and many other things which happen, which get tagged along with the political activities. So, in this period of transition, we did not tinker with this security grid deployment. In any case, the deployment of security forces is always dynamic, and redeployment keeps on taking place depending upon the situation in different areas. So that is a constant process which keeps which viewed in the internal meetings as well as at the state level, also in the unified command meetings from time to time. So so let's leave it at that, and that's going to continue as such. But coming to this question, I think we need to be extra vigilant during the process of transition until the new state government stabilizes and is able to function smoothly. And we have to keep a watch on how the activities of our ground workers, the separatists, take place during that period after the installation of the political government, because sometimes they feel that the political parties may not be so tough on the anti-national elements. Again, based on what General Dua has also mentioned, what I also underlined earlier, because that need not be elaborated. Some compulsions come up during the process of dealing with the people, because they have to carry the people along, and therefore we have to be extremely cautious. We have to be cautious on any Pakistan misadventure also, because they might also think that this is the time that we can increase the activities in Kashmir and try to revive the old in networking and the flow of funds. We have to be very cautious on that. Government of India has taken very strong measures during the past few years in making the funding network. The NIA has been doing an excellent job in raiding the places, attaching the properties, recovering huge funds which were going to terrorists and to the separatists. Now that needs to be continued with extra effort. So, in a nutshell, I would say that till the government at least is in power, the political government is in power for at least a year, we need not dilute or tinker with our deployments on our alertness in any manner, but only to reinforce it on all fronts, including the internal security, the external security, the borders, and on radicalization front, flow of funds, besides the other activities which we have already discussed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. That was quite right, and the way you put it across is first class. Right. There's I would say, a different question. Javed, I would like you to handle it. I'll read it out. In the present and in reality, the demographics and the mindset are not conducive to Kashmirian, meaning or implying a mini Bharat. Your views. I mean, you did make a mention of it that people's mindset have changed and all that. And Akash feels that it might not be so. So, what are the dangers of this, and where do you see this? How do you see this unfolding in future? That's how I look at this question. Yeah, all yours.
General Sahab, I can read this question. And Akash Krishan Thadani Sahab, thank you so much for asking this beautiful question. I wouldn't be able to answer your question in the same capacity or wavelength you would want me to answer. But I would love to invite you to my beautiful Kashmir. Please come here. I will take you to a very holy place in my village. That holy place is called Beram. It's a small mountain. And Maha Acharya Abhinav Gupta ji, who is considered and believed to be the architect of Kashmiri culture and philosopher of Shaivism, a polymath who has traveled all across globe and returned to my village along with his 1200 students, disciples from across the globe and entered this holy cave, and it is still a mystery. He has written hundreds of books on society, on human value system, on aesthetics, on human nature. I would love to take you there and show you how Kashmir has transformed, how Kashmiriyat is being revived by people who have lived their life under the shadow of gun. They were definitely living a life full of fear. But to my understanding, this has always been between Khof and hope. All of us together, we have defeated Khof. And this is the new dawn over Kashmir. I believe in the ideas of religion, in the ideas of social value system, civilizational value system. I love my civilization. I have written it in many of my papers, and I am writing a book wherein I have mentioned civilization is more important than religion. Because in last 2000 years, my ancestors in Kashmir have changed 4 different religions. But nobody could change that Kashmiriyat in them. Nobody could change that Kashmiri civilizational value system, cultural value system. That's where I see hope. That's where I get this a lot of energy. You can see that energy is on my cheeks. That energy is in my eyes. That energy is in my voice. This wasn't before. Yes, this energy was there, but it was under the influence of that gun culture. That gun culture is gone. I would like to take an example. I have seen in my village in 2002 or 3 a militant being killed and more than 10,000 people marching towards police station to get that dead body, and while singing taranas and burying that dead body in a nearby village. And a policeman martyred by the same terrorist. I haven't seen even 10 people going to offer funeral prayers to that brave Jawan. And I was not more than 12 or 13 years old. But today, when I see a Kashmiri Hindu brother being martyred by a terrorist, hundreds of Kashmiri youth come together and protest against that barbaric act, protest against that terrorist act in front of historical Gantaghar at Lal Chowk. That's where I see Kashmiriyat being revived. That's where I see hope. And that hope is when there is no hope. And I promise you, Akash Krishan Thadani Sahab, there is no hope now. You cannot see hope in my eyes. There was hope. Yes, I accept. मैं भी डरता था, बहुत डरता था, मेरी फैमिली डरती थी. एक तिनका वो डर का आज भी है, लेकिन उस खौफ को हमने हराया. हम सब ने मिलके, my core commander Satish Dua Sahab, my DGP Kuldeep Khoda Sahab, and every Kashmiri who believed in the idea of Kashmiriyat, who believed in the idea of humanity, holy idea of India. We have been fighting against that hope. And today, I must say this with pride, that idea of India is in Kashmir. I will take this idea of India to every nook and corner of my country. And whole world has started looking up to this beautiful idea. India will become Vishwa Guru. Javed Beg believes in that. Trust me, all of us, 140 crore, 1.4 billion Indians are messengers of humanity. All of us, we are all messengers. We will convey that beautiful message. Every messenger is bound to convey that message of humanity. And we have conveyed that message. That's where I stand today, Javed Beg, in Moot village, speaking on this beautiful show to my countrymen and to the world. That idea of India is the only solution to every problem in the world. Thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot. That was very nice, Javed. The main thing which you put across, and it's not that Akash is doubting that, but I think he's asked a question which is a genuine question, which is there in many people's mind. But the way you come across is something fantastic. And let me underwrite what you said. Probably about 10 years back or 15 years back, if you had spoken like this, people would have been lined up for your, funeral also, right? And probably there wouldn't be anyone to, आपको दफनाने के लिए भी कोई नहीं आता 10 साल पहले
Very true.
वो हालत
Very
था
true. Very true.
आजकल लोग बोल रहे हैं लोग सब कुछ कर रहे हैं तो there's a change. This itself is a great change. जो बात आपने बोला खौफ से निकल के उम्मीद खौफ से उम्मीद का जो बदलाव है वो बहुत बड़ी बदलाव है and that is the one which moves people and that's the faith which moves mountains also, right? The last question I'll take is a little mundane but it has a larger purpose. I'd request General Satish Dua to handle it. He says, sir, how is maintaining security in J&K different from other bordering states like Gujarat, Arunachal? Are the differences mainly due to geography of that place? Though it's a very, very fundamental in this question. But I think the difference between what's happening in J&K and how you maintain it, taking into consideration the state of Pakistan, I think you need to give us a bit of an overview. And what it will be in the future is the more important thing. Over to you, General Satish Dua.
State of J&K is very different from any other state in the country as far as this issue of security is concerned. Two major aspects. One is the aspect of the internal dynamics of J&K has been very turbulent. Right from even days before militancy hit the streets of Jammu and Kashmir, Mr. Kuldeep Khoda also mentioned that. And I have mentioned that in my second book, which General Murthy spoke about. In 1983, when there was this match between India and West Indies, in 1983, the India and West Indies match, when India had just returned as a World Cup winners, and yet when when they entered the field, they were booed out. Gavaskar has written in his book Runs and Ruins. He says, we were very surprised that we were coming as World Cup winners, and the match is between India and West Indies, but the narebazi was Pakistan Zindabad. I mean, it was absolutely unfathomable, and I'm talking of it was 13th October 1983. So the undercurrents have been there. I'm coming back to the question. The internal dynamics has always been turbulent. I remember one day in 1980 when I was posted in Jackalai Center, we went, there was again an India-Pakistan match going on. And there was a radio in a shop. We asked that shopkeeper, the lady, India was about to win it. And when we walked out of her room, score kya hua? She said, hara diya na tumhare India ne. 1980, tumhare India ne. So anyone who's lived there knows that the undercurrents were already there. So this internal dynamics, which took on a very violent shape after 88, 89, and we've been combating that at different level, different ranks, one has been there. But On the other hand, even if any other state could have any, like northeastern states have some dynamics, Manipur has some dynamics like this, but we have the external dynamics. It is bordering Pakistan. Not only bordering Pakistan, Pakistan has illegally occupied parts of Kashmir, which is called POK. With that, and the other dynamics, let's not talk about how they have fighters without a cause, the Pashtun, the Mujahideens that they raised for Afghanistan, everything. So much they are the fountainhead of terrorism. They realize that they cannot win in conventional terms, so much so that after 3 wars, India has partitioned Pakistan. He has made 2 countries out of Pakistan in 1971. So they realize that conventionally they can't get the better of us. So they have waged an open proxy war with a philosophy of death by 1,000 cuts. Now, with that overt philosophy, they have been exporting terrorists into our country. That is something that does not happen in any other state. So that is how the dynamics of Jammu and Kashmir, security-wise, is vastly different from any other state. Even Punjab, which was supported by Pakistan, the Khalistan issue was supported by Pakistan, moral, financial support. However, they could not send in terrorists from that side because the ethnic similarities are not there. Here, ethnic similarities are there, and they actually send in their terrorists. Terrorists from POK, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan have actually come in, and we've combated them. So I think there is no comparison as far as security is concerned between J&K and other states that you mentioned. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll stop because there are too many questions. We can't handle it. I thought we'll take one or important question and finish it off. I have really nothing to say. At the end, all I'll say is all three of you have actually outlined how a hopeless situation in Jammu and Kashmir has turned into a situation of hope over the past 4 years. Beginning, right, August 19, when Article 370 was abrogated till now. In my own opinion, and this is my opinion, JNK needed a political solution. It didn't need a military solution. It did not need an administrative solution. It did not need a demographic solution or any other solution. It needed a political solution. And the political solution was the abrogation of this Article 370. It got abrogated. Supreme Court has finally nailed it, finished. And I think hereafter, there's a lot of hope. And in this period of hope, it is for all of us to put our shoulder together to make this hope grow better into something good, right? And restore Jammu and Kashmir back to what it was earlier days. We also have to remember that way back in 65, way back in 71, it was the people of Jammu and Kashmir who told the Indian army that the Pakistanis are there. It was not the other way around, right? And there are, if you've been to certain places, if you read history, that is the kind of loyalty which they had with this nation. Somewhere it went off. I think it should come back. It's going to be a long road ahead, but we should stay the course. So I finished. General Murthy sir, you might like to wrap it up and thank
Yes.
everyone, all our panelists who I thought have been brilliant. Over to you, sir.
Thank you all very much and for this wonderful discussion and the voice of the valley, Javed Beg, that we can see and hear. It gives us great hope.
Thank you.
You beautifully said from cough to hope. We cannot undo the past, but the executive, that is the government of India, the Parliament of India, and the Supreme Court of India have laid the foundations for a very bright future for J&K. Let us hope that the political process plays out. And as Mr. Kuldeep Khoda very clearly said, that the politicians cannot ignore the voice of the people. And if this is the voice of the people, despite a few dissenters, you have dissenters in every state of the country, but as long as it doesn't go into violence, I'm sure J&K has a very, very bright future. Thank you all very much. Thank you, General Shankar, General Dua, Mr. Koda, and Mr. Javed Beg. And above all, thank you, the audience,
you.
for your patience and forbearance. And I think this has been a wonderful discussion. Jai Hind, and all the best to everybody. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.